Financial advice, financial planning, investment management. It's a busy, noisy world out there, isn't it? And I think for sure it can sometimes be pretty difficult to convey all of the value we offer and put it out there in the world for people to latch onto. And that's because, as I say, it is busy and noisy with lots of different advisors who have lots of different messages, working for different firms. And while similar, those messages can sometimes be different as well. I get it. When I was preparing my last video message for my book introduction, I started thinking about all of the different areas we work in: financial planning, investing, using tax allowances, protecting families against horrible, unforeseen catastrophes like premature death or serious illness, and ultimately how we protect the estate and then move it on down the bloodline safely and tax efficiently, and minus a big chunk of inheritance tax going to the Inland Revenue. And I started to think to myself, what's the one element, what's the most important part, what's the one thing in there that if I had to spend the rest of my life just talking about, what would it be? What's the one piece of the puzzle that I think offers the most value to pretty much anyone taking on the message, absorbing it, and then perhaps acting on it? And initially I thought maybe it's what's your number? The amount of money that we will all need to get through retirement comfortably and never run out in this ever rising cost world that we now live in. And I thought maybe that's the key element. Am I going to be okay? As a family, are we going to have enough money to live through retirement, or will we run out? Or will we die with too much and pass 40% onto the government to spend? Probably not wisely. And around 10 years ago, we got really good, I think, at working on the number through a great guy and a coach called Paul Armson, who's pretty well known in our sector. And Rob and I had him come up and work with us directly when we had our other office on the plaza, I should say, on Old Hall Street. And this was like back in 2011, 2012. And as an aside, Paul actually wanted us to go and do the training with him on his boat in Turkey, but we didn't. And we forced him to really come and see us in Liverpool for a few days, which he was okay with. We put him up in the Hope Street Hotel, just around the corner in the Georgian Quarter, and we had dinner and so on and so forth. And we thought the training was fabulous and it's been really helpful. And I even did a series of videos on it with Really Bright Media about 4 years ago. And by the way, they're still on the free to watch YouTube channel, so check them out. But then I thought, well, maybe there's no point knowing what our number is, how much money is enough, if we've got absolutely no chance of achieving it. And I came to the conclusion that the most valuable part of what we do could be in the investing elements, the investing part of our service, to be specific, the evidence-based investing element within our service, which is backed and underpinned by over 8 decades now of study and research from some of the world's best minds, people like Eugene Farmer, Ken French, Robert Merton, Nobel Prize winners, and others with them. And dimensional funds allow us to capture equity market returns minus any guesswork, minus crystal balls or having to pick out star funds or managers or predict what's going to happen in equity markets. And all of that noise, rubbish and nonsense. And the fact is, by using dimensional funds, in the main, we keep costs really low. And I think that's a massive part of why I thought perhaps, or rather people perhaps don't achieve their number. It's because maybe they're giving too much away in fees to managers and expensive investment advisors who they've engaged to help them. And maybe the managers and advisors are doing far better than they are. And I talk an awful lot about that in my book. And it's really important because if we can reduce just 1% in fees or strip the 1% out from a typical active advisor or manager, it can more or less give the same back the size of the portfolio as it stands today over a typical retirement window. And by the way, there's 9.4 trillion invested now in the UK, and I know that from the latest Investment Association report. And I also know that around 70% of that 9.4 trillion is actively managed. And it is a true fact that research and rafts of it has showed us that active management typically costs around 2.5% more than it should a year. And the truth is, we'll all be far better off if we were just in lower cost index funds, passively managed, keeping our costs right down. And that's what makes the big difference. So I thought, imagine what would happen if we were to not only reduce the annual costs by 1%, which we can typically, giving people back the same amount they have at the point we take them on. But what if we also gave an extra 1% in output, in delivery, in performance? And I hate that word performance because it's a word which doesn't resonate with me because we have no control over investment performance. But imagine what a 2% swing does. If 1% gives you your portfolio size back as it stands today, just imagine what 2% might look like, or 3%. And there's actually an example in the pack that you can request after watching this video of my real life client Susan, and she also features in the book. She, fact of matter, was £4,600 a year better off after I'd onboarded her. But just wait till you see what that compounds to over 20 or 30 years. It's honestly eye-watering. Our full equity portfolio has delivered around a 10% annualised return through thick and thin over any decade over the last 8 decades. No guesswork, no sorcery, no forecasting, no crystal balls, no timing markets, no nonsense from fund managers or silliness from investment advisors who claim to be able to pick stocks and bonds and funds and get you in and out always at the right times. Their active strategy has been proven to fail time and time and time again. And why do people do it? I know we can all be seduced by big numbers, and if we see a fund that's risen by 50%, people jump in. But the reality is that it's probably already on its way out. And the fact alongside that is maybe you wouldn't really need to chase rear view mirror performance and returns if you knew your number. Maybe the 10% we can deliver does the job consistently over a longer period of time. I think that's the real value of knowing your number. It stops us taking wrong turns. Big banks, the private banks, the big investment houses, and the glossy even financial networks, who all feature in here, are charging around 2.5% a year all in. And they're creaming probably at least another 1 point from you right now. And I'll bet my life you haven't even noticed. And I think this is the one element that can make a big difference. And I'm sorry, Paul, I love your work. It's been fabulous and ever so useful. And we've been banging that drum for 10 years, proper financial planning. But there is no point knowing your number if you've got an active investment strategy or an advisor using active funds or a glossy network advisor supporting you. The number won't matter. It won't make any difference because, in my opinion, the drag on your portfolio will be so great, you'll never achieve it in any event. We finish off with probably, I would say, the second most important part of our holistic service. And that's how we pass it all on to the children safely and tax efficiently. And that's the real value on offer here from a proper, independent and decent financial planner. It's more money for you to live life on your terms today and through retirement. And ultimately pass everything you've worked tirelessly on to create to your children or charities or good causes close to your heart tomorrow. Live life on your terms today, pass it on safely tomorrow. And by safely, I should just say you can't just pass the kids 1 million, 3 million, 6 million or whatever, because a number of really bad things can and do often happen. And I'm going to leave that with you, and I'm going to pick up on this second vital, critical part of our service in my next video on the run up to my full book launch next week. So watch this space.